Thanks for joining our session called A Customer's Digital Transformation Journey from Premise to Cloud Contact Center. I'm very excited to have with me today Phil Bennett from Empire Today, a very well-known flooring company in the United States. Phil's a longtime InContact customer with several different companies, and he will lay out Empire Today's journey to a fully hosted solution, and then go into how they're really taking advantage of some of the ongoing support and post-install opportunities that are available to make sure that they're getting the most out of the experience with InContact. So we will get things started now. Welcome, Phil, and I will give you control.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. Okay, so welcome to a customer's digital transformation journey. I'm pleased to be able to share it with you. I would have loved to have shared it with you in person. Obviously, things did not work out quite the way we had hoped this year. It's been a very interesting year for everyone. So just to give you a little bit of background, I will move to the next slide. And so I unexpectedly entered the call center business in early 2002. I never really planned to be in it. I was in sales prior to joining, and for us, if you had to go into the call center, it was considered a punishment. And so we traditionally tried to do everything we possibly could to avoid that sort of thing. However, I got into it and ended up building a call center for an online brokerage firm. The name was Options Express. We were located in downtown Chicago, and we built our call center in El Paso, Texas. We started out building a chat center and then adding email and voice simply because that's kind of what our customers wanted. It's funny, initially we had tried to do this kind of high-tech thing where we weren't going to take phone calls. Customers don't really go for that. So basically we had a multi-channel call center that handled voice, chat, and email, and that really gave me my start, partly because of not knowing what I was doing really in the call center industry. I had no real idea what best practices were or anything like that. I started attending events like these, and actually that's how I learned to do what I do. In 2011, we were purchased by Charles Schwab. They're a tremendous company. I think the world of them. Unfortunately, our 50-seat call center was more of a curiosity. They had 7 call centers at the time, the smallest one being 1,700 seats. And so 50 seats was like, yeah, that's kind of cute. So basically, we knew that we weren't going to remain a call center for them, and they have closed the call center that I built, although they've integrated all of the functions and features that we had into their offering. And we also managed to retain business here with Charles Schwab. They have a very large operations center in El Paso now. After they purchased us and they phased out the call center, I went my own way. And in early 2015, I started with a company called Insurion. Now, they're an insurance brokerage firm based in Chicago as well. And they needed assistance with their call center workflows. They were having some trouble. They just brought in a large channel partner, and it was directing a lot of calls their way, and they were struggling with long wait times and things like that. A friend of mine was working with them, and he reached out to me. We had worked together at Options Express, and he said, would you come and do this? And I jumped at the chance to get back into the call center business because I actually found out that I really enjoyed everything I did. Running the call centers, building call centers, and things like that. What happened when I got there was I found out that basically they needed more than just workflows and someone to manage their call center. They literally needed technology. They had an old on-premise system that they had inherited when they bought another company, and they were basically, making it work, but it was less than optimal. Let's just put it that way. And in talking to my CTO, he said to me, I would really like a cloud-based solution. In 2011, when I got out of the call, or 2012, when I got out of the call center industry, nobody was really talking about cloud. And so I did some research and found out that it was something that was very interesting and very worthwhile. And so I started looking at cloud-based solutions. Interestingly enough, and this is how I came to InContact, they had originally talked to InContact, but misunderstood the way it would be deployed. They didn't realize that InContact was a call center solution. They were trying to bring it in for the entire company. And so that really wouldn't have worked. You really don't need mail clerks to have call center functionality. Everybody in the firm did not need InContact's functionality, and as a result, the pricing didn't work when they sat down to figure it out. I discovered this by talking to our original salesman, who's still with InContact. It's Joe Giamenko, and we have a great relationship to this day. I think the world of Joe. But anyway, he explained to me what happened, and I was able to very quickly figure it out and realized that we needed some sort of blended solution. And so we brought in InContact for the call center portion. We brought in RingCentral for the unified portion. And in those days, InContact and RingCentral were first starting to pair together and create a unified platform. They actually announced that after we inked the deal, but it was a good thing because it helped us work very well together. So the only problem that I had with working for Intricacies was I was commuting back and forth from Chicago every week to El Paso and really missing my family. And so that was something that was never going to be a long-term solution for me. When we parted ways a year and a half later, I saw an ad for someone at Empire, and I knew somebody who was working at Empire, and so I reached out to her and we talked, and she said that I could be an asset, and so I pursued the position. And what I found when I got to Empire, I am not directing the call center. We've created a position. The call center director actually has me in because she needed to upgrade our systems at Empire. We were using an out-of-date Cisco on-prem system, and we knew that that was going to be sundowned shortly after I came on board, and we needed to come up with a new solution. So over the course of this, I'm going to be discussing the overall migration that we went to, and also some of the offerings. So hopefully that I can appeal to more than one audience. There's hopefully some of you are considering a cloud-based solution, and you'll get some benefit out of that. But if you already have InContact in place, hopefully I can talk about some of the offerings that we're using and how they've benefited us and maybe a benefit to you as well. So this is what we're going to cover: the discovery, which was managing the vendor search process in the RFP. Change is a big thing in any organization, and I really stress, and I'm going to stress throughout this, how important it is to understand your culture and how important it is to understand what the change is actually going to be. You're going to hear some things. The CTO that we had in place at the time, he's no longer with us, but he was, generally speaking, very suspicious of cloud-based products. He really wasn't interested in considering them, and the fact that we managed to convince him to only look at cloud-based solutions for the RFP was a major win for the call center. And understanding him and understanding our current culture, or the culture at the time, really made a difference in getting it done, because otherwise I don't think we would have. And then I'll talk about the results and the improvements that we gained from it, and also the improvements that we gained from the support that we're getting from InContact. It's a really wonderful thing for us, and I'm happy to share, and I love sharing it. So to give you a bit of an overview of us, hang on just a second. Okay. To give you an overview of us, the solutions that we're currently using are omni-channel routing, personal connection, and the quality management piece. We are looking at other solutions to integrate. We're just about to add Salesforce to it. Excuse me, not because of we're migrating to Salesforce, but because we actually use it for one of our outbound calling platforms, and we're going to integrate that to make it a much more user-friendly function. The things that we were looking to do, we were on Cisco. It was on-prem, it was old, it was clunky. We didn't have skills-based routing. We didn't have the ability to set priorities for agents, and so we couldn't have strong agents making sure that they were getting the majority of the calls, and weaker agents there to back up for call volume. We had an awful lot of call volume that was being driven by frustration due to long wait times. And so these are things that really ended up affecting us dramatically at the time, and were things that we were looking to solve. So the desire to move to the cloud, there's a couple of things that led to it. The biggest one was that everything in our company was being handled by our IT department primarily. And I love my IT guys. They're tremendous, but the less that they have to do with my operations, the more that I'm controlling it, is much better for me. And I'll give you an example. On the Cisco platform that we were using, every change that we had to do had to run through our IT department. Now, when I got there, the first project that we were working on was simplifying the IVR. There were way too many button presses for the customers. The customers would get frustrated and just press the first thing that came to mind. And so they weren't really being routed as well as they could be. And we went to them and we said, we'd like to simplify the button presses and, simplify the IVR, streamline it, make it easier for our customers. And they said, sure, we can handle that. It'll take us 14 months. At 14 months, they actually delivered the new IVR to us. It took us another month of calibration simply because they didn't understand things like cadence and how long to allow for a customer to make a response inside the IVR. So as you can imagine, everything sort of came out like a run-on sentence, and we had to go in and retweak it to get it to where we wanted it to be. Now, on a cloud-based platform, and thankfully I had already used one, I knew that this could be done in maybe a half an hour on my end if I wanted to, and I knew that this was something we really needed to do in order so that we could be strategic and that we could remain aligned with the business needs and keep things moving. Now, there were some other benefits. Because we were going to be sundowning all of our licenses, we would also have to sundown all of our hardware, which meant every soft phone, every server, and every other product that we had that used the phone system all would have had to have been upgraded. The upgrade projected cost was somewhere north of $1 million to do all of that, get the new licenses and new hardware. And this gave us an opportunity to say, let's look at, call center as a service and move to the cloud. And while there was some initial pushback to this, the other benefits that we got from it, the fact that you move from CapEx to OpEx, you're moving your payment from a large expenditure every couple of years to a payment that you can budget out in your operations was a benefit. The flexibility of it, first of all, the ability to maintain the platform without IT, but also some of the other things. The fact is we can sit down right now and a manager can say, hey, can we do this? And I can sit down and create it almost on the fly. That kind of flexibility is very important to us. And the other thing is disaster recovery. And I believe that brings me to my next slide, which I'm going to jump into. One of the first things that I do when I arrive at a call center is I take a good hard look at their disaster recovery plans and evaluate them based on just about every imaginable possible disaster scenario you can think of. I did not at the time think of a global pandemic shutting down the call centers, but things that we did think about are what would happen if we had a fire in the call center. What would happen if somebody was working on, doing road construction and severed our internet connection to the call center? How would we react in that case? And in every case, a cloud-based solution is much more flexible than the on-prem solution that we had. The on-prem solution that we had was dependent on our network. It was complicated when you tried work from home, and we were experimenting it. You had to run everything over the VPN. The VPN had to be solid. If you ran into any issues along that point, you couldn't log into the phone, and you couldn't use the phone system. And so it created a single point of failure and another vulnerability that I really didn't think that we needed to have. Having some familiarity with InContact from InCurion, I knew that if I wanted to and if I needed to, I could literally build a call center in a ballroom, a hotel ballroom. As long as it had sufficient internet, we could put it up and running. I could build it anywhere, or I could build it nowhere at all and run in the cloud and have virtual agents if we needed to. And so we really believed that that was a very, very good solution, so that we could protect ourselves for the unexpected, and that ended up playing out far better than we ever had any idea it was going to. Okay, so that leads us to our journey. Our RFP was thoroughly exhaustive, way too long. It ran to 146 pages before we were done. There was really no reason for that, except for the fact that our CTO was relatively suspicious of cloud-based solutions. And he wanted to make sure that every possible thing that he could think of was covered. And so we ended up doing 146 pages. We talked to 11 companies. And as you can imagine, that was truly a bit of a slog, because I was the one that got to read all of those RFPs and go through all of the responses. Now, the truth of the matter is a couple of the companies ended up deciding that they didn't want to proceed with us with that long an RFP, because it just would have required too many resources for them. And that was fine with me. If you wish to self-select, I'm happy to have you do that. We're only going to choose one company anyway, and I have to narrow it down. So ultimately, we narrowed it down to 3 solid offerings. All of them could have been a solution, but and just for a bit of clarity, having used InContact before, I did feel that it was probably going to be our best choice. However, I didn't want to allow my bias to affect the process, and it was actually our IT evaluators who felt that InContact was going to be the best choice for us. I had no problem with that. I was actually cheering for that, because I knew that with my previous experience with them, I knew that we would have no problems doing the integration. We would have no problems getting ready for the launch, and we would have no problems getting the product up and running. And again, this is something that we run into at Empire. We don't now, but the former CTO, if he wasn't really on board with a solution, he would drag his feet. He would come up with ways that, this solution needs to be solved. And, the good news is I knew, working with InContact, any solution that he threw at me, I would be able to get that solved. And that actually happened, and we did. So we'll move on, and I'll talk about that when it comes. So basically, I've talked about culture, and this is really important. The biggest key here is make sure you understand how each department is going to interact with the phone system and what they need to get out of it. This sounds relatively easy. We sent out an email to all of the department heads and asked them. It wasn't until after we signed the contract that one of the department's heads came back to us and said, "Oh, by the way, it needs to do this." And I said, "Well, why didn't you tell me during the RFP process? And they said, well, we're really not tech people, so we really didn't think we should speak up, but we've got to have it do this or else we can't launch. And, I said, okay, great. What is it that we need to do? They told me it was an integration that we needed to do that actually was much more complex than it sounded like. We use Siebel for our CRM. Nothing talks to Siebel because Siebel is about to be sundowned as well. And the integration that InContact actually had with Siebel, they had stopped updating in 2015 when Siebel announced that they were going to be sundowning in 2021. Thankfully, as I said, InContact is very easy to work with. I did some brainstorming with them. We came up with a way to get around it, and it only took a month out of our development and implementation schedule to get that done. The good news is I built 2 months into the implementation schedule for stuff like that because I knew it was going to happen. Really understanding cultural factors will help you in this. It allowed me to actually launch the product. We ended up being a week later than I wanted it to be. But it was because I had planned for problems along the way because I knew that's how we were. And so luckily things have gotten much better. Our CTO is no longer with us. The new CTO is really sharp, so he's much easier to work with. But these are important things, and don't depend on the department heads to come back to you and actually give you the information you need. Get a chance to go down, interview them, talk with them one-on-one, and really push them for how they need to interact with the platform. As I said, process took 20 weeks. It was longer than expected, but we planned for that. The implementation support staff was absolutely excellent. Nina did a fantastic job. The only criticism that I have of Nina was that she was way too anxious to please. I would ask her if the platform could do something. She would come back and say, okay, I've already done that. And I would have to go back and say, no, I just needed to know if it could for future use, but thank you for setting it up for us. So literally that was the biggest thing I ran into. Nina just, I can't say enough good things about her. She did a tremendous job. She was eager to do a great job, and she really helped us so that we were ready to go. Interestingly enough, and this is a quick aside, my call center director came to me the night before we launched, and she said, Phil, we're not ready. I said, absolutely, yeah, we are. We will be fine tomorrow. She said, no. You don't understand. We got to make sure everything's where. I said, everything's been tested 6 ways from Sunday, and we're ready to go. And she said, okay, I guess. I said, look, we can always turn it off. Let's turn it on. The biggest thing that you get into in one of these implementations is if you don't turn it on when you're scheduled to turn it on, your odds go way down on getting something done. And so I strongly recommend launch. You can fix things after you launch, and we did. There was a number of things, and I knew this was going to be the case. There were a number of little things that we had to tweak, but the fact of the matter is the implementation and the launch was flawless in its execution, and probably it was actually easier than the one that I did for Intricacies, probably because I knew what to expect. But we had no major issues, and we had to tweak a few things. There was a phone number where people would enter a number on the website and ask for a callback. We didn't know about that at the time we started, but we were able to get that up and running in about 20 minutes after we found out. So I mean, the good news is the platform is flexible, it works well, and it allowed us to launch. And Tracy did come back to me a few months later and say, I was really nervous, but you knew it was going to work. And it wasn't that I knew it was going to work. I just knew from working with InContact that I really didn't think we had anything to worry about. Okay, next slide. So basically the results and improvements of doing all this. The first thing was having skills-based routing was just a wonderful addition to the call center. Being able to direct calls and get them to the right agent really improved our customer satisfaction with the call environment that they were in. It improved the call flow. It didn't require lots of transfers, and that really, really helped. InContact also has callback technology, or virtual hold, as I refer to it. It allows our customers, and if you're familiar with it, you know about it, it allows the customers to opt out of listening to our wonderful hold music, especially in times of long holds. And really, that has been hugely beneficial. I frankly would recommend anybody that has the capability of adding this, if you haven't added this to your call flow, especially now. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've sat calling somebody and sat on hold for 40 minutes listening to their hold music because they have longer than expected wait times due to COVID. We understand that we have longer than expected wait times, but if I don't have to wait, if you'll call me back when an agent is available, then I can do other things and I don't have to listen to the hold music and get irritated. So that was a major benefit. The interesting thing was, and we didn't even realize this, but we probably managed to shave about 10% of our call volume right off the bat. Now, we were dealing with 55,000 phone calls a week. So to take 10% of our call volume off because of this, because people would get frustrated waiting on hold, hang up, and call back, really did make a difference. It also improved the attitude of the customer when they finally got to an agent. People weren't upset because they had to wait. They were thrilled that we called them back and they were actually talking to an agent right off the bat. And so it made for a more pleasant conversation for our agent, for our customers, and it really reduced a lot of stress on the system and in the system, for the agents, which was a very, very good thing. Another immediate benefit that we realized, we were able to consolidate two of our third-party vendors. Their sole purpose was extracting insight or information from the phone system. We were using a company to provide us with dashboards and call metrics, and we were using a different company to handle our call recording. And this was not wonderful. I mean, Cisco did none of this stuff, even though all the information resided inside their system. They couldn't do it. So we had to pay third-party vendors to do it. And InContact immediately allowed us to get rid of them and realize an immediate ROI. The other thing is, obviously, is the flexibility of the system. We're able to do things. I mean, I had somebody call me yesterday and say, we'd like to do a new skill for this. And I said, great, sat down and had it out within, about 5 minutes. Very easy to do, gives us a lot of flexibility. The biggest thing as a new user is Studio, but once you learn Studio, it's it just allows you to do some amazing things. One of the biggest advantages that we were able to put out was a zip code router that allows callers to input their zip code, and then we route calls based on that. And the reason that this is important for us is we have about 72 markets nationwide that actually handle the implementation and installation of our customers' orders. And so we have to, they call into the call center, but most of the servicing is done by the local markets. And we were able to literally take some of that off our plate by using the zip code router to direct the caller to the market that they were having their installation done in, so that they could handle it directly without having to talk to someone in the call center first. And again, this has been a big improvement as far as customer satisfaction goes, and also agent satisfaction, because they're not doing a lot of transfers. Now, What I want to talk about now are the features that we've selected for user support. The first thing was, and this was actually one of the best things that my former CTO insisted on. He insisted that we have the customer CX success package. For me, that was something I did not have in my first implementation, and I cannot tell you how important that has been to me. Working with Nicole, my TAM, has been a true delight. I bounce ideas off of her. She helps me with call flows when we're trying to put things together, and she has just been a resource beyond a value. I just can't place a value on it. It is wonderful to have her. I highly recommend, if you don't have one of these packages, to look into them, because having the dedicated resource, having the 5 hours a month, I don't usually use them, but I have them, and so I can call her, or I can call professional services on demand and build a call flow. Have them. I find it even more valuable to bounce my ideas. So I build the call flow first, call them, have them look it over, tell me where I can tweak it, improve it, and then we test it and we get it out. It's a true. It's wonderful for getting the full value of the platform and the flexibility out of the system, and it's something I just cannot stress enough as being important. The other thing to talk about is Studio. We opted for the online, or for the training, on-site training for Studio. There's two different packages. One, you can go to Utah and go through the training. We actually decided to pay to have a trainer come to us. The reason that was valuable is it allowed us to have more than one person learn Studio. So we now have 3 people who are trained in Studio. Now, I will say this, you have to use it frequently to keep up with the skills. But, the truth of the matter is, having myself now know Studio, and I'm not an expert. I'd love to be an expert, but I'm not. But having, myself able to go in and create things, I actually was able to build out that zip code router all by myself. I knew it could be done. We started exploring the different widgets and ways of making it happen. Nicole and I worked on that, and we ran into an interesting issue that we didn't know about, and that's way down at the bottom here. The issue is that there is a limit on the number of entries on an if statement, but not on the snippet itself. So these two pieces work together. The if statement says, if this phone number shows up, or if this zip code shows up, and is on the snippet, then you have to do this. And that's really critical for call routing. But what we didn't know is you can only put about 750 zip codes or entries on an if statement, but you can put an unlimited number of the ones on the snippet. So we were building out the snippet, then we tried it with the if statements, and it wasn't working. Luckily, we figured that out, and we just started stringing the if statements together till we had enough, and that worked perfect. The other thing that is really important is tracing scripts. So the interesting thing is, you can take and build a single script, and you can run a trace through it, and it's great. The only problem that you get, especially if you have variables that you're passing from script to script, you need to start on the initial script where the variable is set. Otherwise, things don't happen the way you expect them to happen on the script that you're tracing. It's not a critical thing, but it led to some frustrations initially, until I got tired of being frustrated and called PSOD, and they'd say, oh, you need to do this. Oh, okay. So these are little things that you learn along the way, and I'm sure there are things I still haven't learned. I can't wait to learn them. One thing I would like to suggest while I have this platform is the ability to group scripts into folders. Right now, you can have folders, and you can have different scripts, but you can't jump from folder to folder. You can only run scripts in a single folder, and it would be very, very helpful to be able to group my folders for my zip codes all in the zip code folder, or my disaster recovery plans all in the disaster recovery folder. So I now have about 200 scripts on my main script for the business unit. Other than that, however, Studio's been a whole lot of fun to work with, and just the flexibility about it has really, really made a difference. So this brings me to the end. This page is the legalese required by my legal department. Basically, it just says that any mistakes I made are mine, and these are all my views and opinions. They don't necessarily represent the views of my employers. There's really nothing controversial here anyway, so I don't think we have any problems with that. And with that, we will move to this final screen. The key takeaways from this presentation have been that migration to the cloud allowed us to improve the customer journey, simplify the agent experience, and most importantly, really reduce costs in a number of very tangible and intangible ways. The flexibility of the platform really became evident last March 15th. March 15th, the company sent out an email saying, don't come into the call center. We're going to start migrating our agents home. All our agents reported for duty that day. We handed them a computer and we sent them home, and we got them up and running as home agents. They have now been home agents since that time, and the transition was extraordinarily smooth from our point of view. It took us exactly 48 hours to get all of our agents out of the call center and up and running from home. I don't believe that that would have been nearly as easy if we hadn't been on InContact. In fact, our IT department called us and set up a conference call on Tuesday at noontime, because they wanted to know what we needed from them to support our agents in a transition to home-based operation. And we said to them on that call, we said, well, we're 3/4 of the way through the process. We'll be done by this evening. Basically just, make sure that the network's up and running. And they were really very taken aback and stunned, and they said, well, carry on, keep it up. And literally it was a relatively painless transition. The other thing is, make sure you've got the right vendor for both technology and support, because when things like this happen, it's really going to be critical. And I cannot stress enough just how wonderful InContact support has been throughout this. They have been an excellent partner, and they've worked with us making sure that our customers and our phones are ringing. So it's been very, very critical to us. So that's all I have to talk about. If you'll all stay tuned, I'll be available for Q&A, and you can ask any questions that you want. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and thank you very much for attending.
Looks like, Phil, we've got a couple questions that came in. And the first one I'll run by you is, who are you using, or are you using any tools for UCaaS, Unified Communications as a Service? How is your company communicating internally? And then is that tied in with the CXone platform?
It is. We're using Vonage, and Vonage, originally, one of the reasons that Vonage was selected was because at the time we looked at them, there was an active partnership with InContact. InContact was providing their call center functionality. Now, Vonage has moved on since then, but we figured that they would still be able to talk on the back end. And it isn't quite as seamless as that, but we were able to build out address books and things like that within InContact. So our agents, they don't have to dial outside numbers. They can just transfer a call, or they can call somebody, click to call, that sort of thing. So it's worked out very well. Unfortunately, with anytime you have two different systems, even when they claim to be integrated, there's really a lot of that on the back end that's tying everything together.
Yeah. Did you use any other kind of, I know you've used InContact with your other companies, with Schwab and Insurance. Did you have any kind of integration with those companies?
We did.
with CXone at that
We
time?
didn't do it with Schwab. The integration was with Intricacies, and that was a
Mhm.
company that we used RingCentral with for UCAS. But they really paved the way. Before I went to Intricacies, I was not at all familiar with um, cloud-based contact center stuff. I mean, all of that was really in the future until I got there. So it really was eye-opening once I got there, and I've just seen some of the fantastic flexibility that you can use with a cloud-based system. Really amazing.
Excellent. And so a big part of your presentation, you just said that it's this RFP process. Did you have that problem with other companies, or is this just sort of unique to this experience? And then I have a follow-up question to that too.
It was actually completely unique to this experience. The when we worked on this at Inchurion, I did a fairly traditional side by side. Went out and we looked at 4 different companies. I thought that was pretty good, and but there was nothing formal like a formal RFP, and that was something that I'd actually never done before. So this was all fairly unique to me, and getting the putting it together so that everything was covered, it was laboriously too long. I mean, there's just no question about it that it should never have been that long. But by the same token, we wanted to make sure that
Hmm.
everything was covered. I needed people to be comfortable with the solution, and this was really the only way we were going to get there, and so it was worth the effort. It really was in the long run.
Uh, do you have any words of wisdom or any advice for somebody who maybe isn't supported by that RFP process? Like it's imagine going back to your earlier days, it's an individual that says, "Hey, we need new contact center platform. We need you to go out and find it." Any advice for that person who might be in the audience today?
I would say ask a lot of questions. Really, the key to it is, unfortunately, when you start this process, there's an awful lot of things that you don't know, and it always seems so straightforward. Oh, we're just going to replace this. But when you go in to do that, there's so many things, so many moving pieces that you have to deal with. You make sure you know how your reporting is done, and what the feed is for the reporting, because that was one of the things we broke at Inchurion right off the bat. And interestingly enough, it brought up at Inchurion another thing, which was a real review of the metrics we were using. Ted was a big proponent of getting the phone answered very, very quickly, and I was a fan of that as well. Uh, but one of the metrics that he looked at was, the answer rate at 15 seconds, the answer rate at 30 seconds. And when we first, started looking at all of this, we didn't account for things like the IVR taking up the first 15 seconds of the phone call. Actually, the IVR in his case was taking up the first iteration we put out was taking up 45 seconds. We were losing people in the IVR without ever really, ever having a chance to answer that call. And so, starting the clock is something that you need to determine. Spend some time. Make sure you know what the beginning of a call is. Make sure that everybody knows what the end of a call is. It's really a critical thing to define your terms, define what an abandoned call is, define all of these different metrics before you start the project, so that A, everybody understands what you're talking about, and B, everybody understands what success is going to look like.
Cool. Thanks for that insight. Hopefully, that's helpful to somebody here in the audience. We did have one other question too. Can you kind of going back to the first one, but can you talk about any of the integrations that you've done as part of this digital transformation? I mean, one of the perks of CXone is that it's an open cloud platform, and it easily allows you to kind of customize your experience and build onto it in the ways that you need. Is there any integrations that you've successfully done?
Well, we're just starting the Salesforce integration. We haven't, done a lot of back-end integration, really, because a lot of our products are up in the air right now. There's a group within the company that would like to see us go the Salesforce way. There's a group within the company that would not like to go the Salesforce way. So, I mean, we really have to take these things one day at a time. And the good news is the number of high quality channel partners that exist that InContact works with out of the box. That really helps out just a tremendous amount. And even other vendors can be accommodated in that. Frankly, our workforce management is a very, very inexpensive workforce management that we had, and we managed to get that integrated as well. So, I mean, it's just working together and working with my TAM, working with Nicole, we've managed to get these things up and running and get them going forward. I really don't have any concerns. I just imagine that, there's a lot of things about that I don't know yet, and so we'll take them as they come. But I do trust that I have a partner that has experience in getting it done, and that really is a big key.
Good. And did you use when it came to implementing the platform? Did you use any third party, or was that through Nice InContact, professional services? And kind of talk about that. How big was your team? What roles did they play, or was it just you?
So for implementation, it was really Nina and I. We were the two people that put it all together. I mean, we had a group of people advising me on my end, because I don't know everything, obviously, and so there were people telling me. I was working with the gentleman who was managing our Cisco platform. He and I worked very, very closely on the transition. He was one of the other people that we trained in studio, so he would be able to continue to do what he was doing on the back end with our old system onto our new system. And then that was really key for mapping out the different call flows and putting things together. We gave Nina the BRD and all the requirements, and basically then she came back and said, let's polish it, and so we did. So it was a very, very good integration from that standpoint. It was just with InContact's engineers. Now on other projects, and we have run an implementation with our outbound dialer that was done by a third party that InContact brought to the table, one of their one of the groups that do that sort of thing for you guys. But they did a tremendous job on that, and that was a very seamless. To be honest with you, I don't know enough about the scripting on that end of it and on the outbound side of it. Something I'd really like to learn more, but it's worked seamlessly and without any problems since we did it.
That's great to hear. Going back to managing, how many resources now are managing the platform? And then we didn't talk about agent count. I mean, how many agents are using it at your company?
So currently the agent count is probably about 125. We had a high pre-COVID of 325. And, I'm the primary manager for it, and that's only one of the things that I do. So, I mean, it isn't a difficult platform in any way, shape, or form to manage. Now, all of the supervisors, they pull the data out that they need. And, we do have a team of 2 business analysts that, take the data from InContact, and rather than integrate it into a reporting platform, what we already had in place was just, they take all that data and they put it into standard reports that we've been using for years. And so, they're very, very good at pulling the data out of the reports. But management of the system and the platform probably comes down to not much more than an hour a week, if that. Um, even adding agents, we've got, workforce can add agents, and so there's 3 people in workforce that handle management as well. But basically everybody, all the other users are agents for us. So, it does not take a lot of, back end. This isn't something I worry about constantly, or I have to go and watch the network for, or anything like that. It's almost to the point where you take it for granted, which obviously you can run into issues there too. But it is not difficult to manage. The hardest thing I had to do was tweak our zip code router this week, and it took a couple of hours, but that's about it.
Excellent. Well, I don't see any other questions in the queue, Phil. So with that, I think we'll wrap this session up. Wanted to thank everybody for joining us. Thank Phil Bennett from Empire today, and enjoy the rest of Interactions. We have some exciting musical performances, and Martha Stewart speaking this afternoon. Thanks for attending.
Can't wait. Thanks.